The universe is full of mysteries, questions we may never truly answer. What is consciousness? Is time an illusion? What lies beyond the edge of reality? Tonight, we explore the deepest, most mind-bending ideas to expand your mind as you drift into sleep. So get cozy, hit the subscribe button, and let's begin. What is consciousness, and why does it exist? Consciousness. It's the one thing we all experience, yet no one truly understands. You are aware that you are listening to this right now. You can feel yourself breathing, sense your thoughts shifting, and observe the world around you. But what exactly is this awareness? Where does it come from? And why does it exist at all? For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and spiritual thinkers have tried to define consciousness. Some believe it's simply the result of electrical signals firing in the brain, a byproduct of complex neural activity. Others argue that it's something more, something fundamental, something woven into the very structure of reality itself. One of the dominant scientific theories of consciousness is the neuroscience model, which suggests that consciousness arises from the interactions of neurons in the brain. Your brain contains around 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others. These neurons fire in synchronized waves, forming patterns of activity that create thoughts, emotions, and memories. But despite being able to observe these electrical signals, no one truly knows why they create subjective experience. Why does the simple act of looking at a color, hearing a song, or remembering a childhood moment feel so intensely real to us? This is known as the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. Science can explain how the brain processes information, but it cannot explain why we actually feel or experience anything at all. Some researchers believe that consciousness is simply an illusion, a mental trick created by the brain. They argue that our sense of self, our emotions, and our thoughts are just emergent properties of complex computations. But if that's the case, why do we feel so deeply that we exist? Why do we have this internal world of sensations, dreams, and self-reflection? Other theories suggest that consciousness might not even originate in the brain. One of the most fascinating ideas is called Integrated Information Theory, IIT, which suggests that consciousness is not just about having a brain, but about how information is processed. According to this theory, consciousness emerges when a system is capable of integrating vast amounts of information in a highly interconnected way. This would mean that a sufficiently advanced AI, if structured correctly, could one day become conscious, not just appear intelligent, but actually experience self-awareness. Then there's panpsychism, a radical but increasingly popular idea that suggests consciousness is a fundamental part of the universe itself. According to this theory, everything in existence, from atoms to planets, has some level of awareness, even if it's incredibly minimal. The idea is that, just as tiny particles make up matter, tiny units of consciousness could make up awareness. If true, this would mean that the entire universe is, in some way, conscious. Think about that for a moment. If awareness is not just something created by the brain, but something woven into reality itself, it raises a profound question. Does the universe know that we exist? Could our individual consciousness be just a tiny piece of something much larger, like drops of water in an endless cosmic ocean? And then there's the quantum connection. Some physicists believe that consciousness and quantum mechanics are linked. The famous double-slit experiment suggests that particles behave differently when observed, as if consciousness itself affects reality. Could this mean that our awareness plays a direct role in shaping the physical world? Some go further, suggesting that reality might not exist in a definite state until it is observed, a theory known as quantum consciousness. But if consciousness is tied to the physical body, what happens to it when we die? Is it simply extinguished, like a flame going out? Or does it continue in some unknown form? This brings us to near-death experiences, NDEs. In thousands of documented cases, people who have been declared clinically dead have later reported vivid experiences, floating above their bodies, seeing bright light, encountering loved ones who have passed. Even more puzzling, some of these experiences have occurred when there was no measurable brain activity. Could this suggest that consciousness is not limited to the body, that it exists independently of the physical brain? And if that's true, could consciousness be eternal? Some ancient philosophies, like those found in Hinduism and Buddhism, have long suggested that consciousness is not something created by the brain, but something that moves through different forms and dimensions, transcending life and death. Modern researchers studying reincarnation cases and past life memories have uncovered astonishing stories of people, especially young children, who recall past lives with startling accuracy. Of course, skeptics argue that such cases could be coincidences, false memories, or tricks of the mind. But even if that were true, it still doesn't answer the core mystery. What is consciousness, and why does it exist? Could it be that our awareness is simply a fleeting moment of electrical activity in the brain, soon to be lost forever? Or is it possible that consciousness is the true fabric of the universe itself, and that our individual minds are just temporary windows into something much greater? As you listen to this, becoming aware of your own thoughts, your own existence, consider this. What is it that's truly listening right now? The mystery of déjà vu. Are we experiencing glitches in reality? Have you ever walked into a place you've never been before, yet somehow it feels strangely familiar? Or maybe you've had a conversation with someone, only to be hit with the overwhelming feeling that you've had this exact conversation before, down to every word, every detail, every breath. This eerie sensation is called déjà vu, a French term meaning already seen. It's a fleeting, yet deeply unsettling moment, as if reality itself is momentarily repeating. But what exactly causes déjà vu? And could it be more than just a trick of the mind? Scientists have studied déjà vu for decades, yet no one fully understands what triggers it. Some believe it's nothing more than a small glitch in memory processing, a brief miscommunication between the parts of the brain responsible for forming new experiences and retrieving old ones. One leading theory suggests that déjà vu happens when our brain processes an experience faster than we can consciously register it. Imagine your brain as a vast network of signals, constantly interpreting everything around you. Sometimes, for reasons we don't yet understand, your brain might register an event in memory before you are consciously aware of it. This creates the illusion that you've already experienced the moment, even though it's happening for the first time. But what if déjà vu isn't just a simple memory glitch? Some researchers have suggested that déjà vu could be evidence of alternate timelines or parallel universes overlapping with our own. If the multiverse exists, and if infinite versions of ourselves are experiencing infinite versions of reality, then déjà vu could be a momentary crossover between two parallel selves. Maybe, in another version of reality, you've already lived this moment, and somehow, for a brief second, your consciousness is tapping into that alternate experience. This idea is supported by theories in quantum mechanics. The many worlds interpretation suggests that every choice we make splits reality into multiple parallel outcomes. If that's true, could déjà vu be a moment where two nearly identical timelines briefly align, creating the feeling that you've experienced something before? There's also the question of precognition, seeing the future before it happens. Some people report experiencing déjà vu not just as a vague feeling of familiarity, but as a clear, undeniable memory of something that hasn't happened yet. They claim to have remembered events before they occurred, down to small details, as if they had already lived them in a dream. And then there are the more spiritual explanations. Some believe déjà vu is evidence of past lives, memories leaking through from a previous existence. If reincarnation is real, could déjà vu be a moment where the past and present briefly merge? Could it be that you're remembering an event from a lifetime long before this one? There have been strange cases throughout history of people recalling vivid details of places they've never been or languages they've never learned, only to later find evidence that their memories match real locations, real people, and real events. Could déjà vu be the mind's way of unlocking fragments of these forgotten pasts? Another theory suggests that déjà vu is a glitch in the simulation, a momentary slip in the programming of reality itself. If we are living in a simulated universe, then déjà vu might be a bug in the system, an accidental repetition of data that wasn't meant to happen. The feeling of familiarity might not be a trick of the brain, but an actual repeat of events in the simulated code of existence. If you've ever experienced déjà vu, you know how deeply unsettling it can feel. It's not just the sensation of having seen something before, it's the feeling that something is off, like reality itself has hesitated for a brief second. So what is déjà vu really? A simple brain glitch? A glimpse into a parallel world? A memory from a past life? Or proof that our reality isn't as stable as we think? As you listen to this now, think back to the last time you experienced déjà vu. Can you remember what triggered it? Or perhaps you're experiencing it right now. Out-of-body experiences. Can consciousness exist outside the brain? Have you ever felt like you were floating outside your body? Maybe in a dream, or even while awake. Some people report the sensation of rising above themselves, looking down at their own body as if they are no longer inside it. This is known as an out-of-body experience, or OBE, but what exactly is happening? Is it just a trick of the mind, a hallucination created by the brain? Or could it be something more, evidence that consciousness is not confined to the body, but capable of existing outside it? Science has long believed that consciousness is generated by the brain, bound to the electrical and chemical processes happening inside our skulls. But out-of-body experiences challenge that assumption. If people can perceive the world from outside their bodies, does that mean consciousness can exist independently of the physical form? One of the most well-documented sources of OBEs comes from near-death experiences, or NDEs. People who have been clinically dead, without heartbeat or brain activity, often report vivid moments of floating above their bodies, watching doctors try to revive them, even moving through tunnels of light. Some of these accounts are eerily detailed, with patients recalling conversations, medical instruments, or events that happened while they were completely unconscious. One famous case involved a woman named Pam Reynolds, who underwent a rare and risky brain surgery in 1991. During the procedure, doctors completely stopped her brain activity. No measurable signals were present. And yet, when she was revived, she described the operation in perfect detail, recalling surgical tools, conversations between doctors, and even the music playing in the background. Skeptics argue that out-of-body experiences are simply hallucinations, the brain misfiring under extreme stress. When oxygen levels drop, or when the brain is overwhelmed with chemicals like DMT, strange perceptions can occur. Some studies have even artificially triggered OBEs by stimulating specific areas of the brain, leading some to believe that these experiences are purely biological. But if OBEs are just hallucinations, how do we explain the cases where people see things they couldn't possibly have known? Some researchers have placed hidden symbols or images in hospital rooms, items that could only be seen from above. In some cases, patients having OBEs have described those objects correctly, despite their physical bodies never being in a position to see them. This raises a profound question. Is consciousness something that exists beyond the brain? One of the most intriguing theories suggests that consciousness might function like a radio signal. The brain isn't creating awareness, it's simply acting as a receiver, tuning in to something greater. If this is true, then OBEs might be moments where the signal temporarily disconnects, allowing consciousness to drift outside the body. Some people claim to experience OBEs at will through meditation, deep relaxation, or even lucid dreaming. Ancient traditions, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism and Hinduism, describe a practice known as astral projection, the idea that the soul, or astral body, can separate from the physical form and travel beyond it. Those who practice this technique describe floating through rooms, visiting distant locations, even venturing into dimensions beyond our own. Could it be that OBEs are more than just hallucinations? Could they be glimpses into another level of existence, one where consciousness is not bound to the body? Modern physics is beginning to explore ideas that once seemed purely spiritual. Some quantum physicists believe that reality itself may be a projection of information, something more like a simulation than a physical place. If that's the case, then maybe consciousness isn't trapped in our bodies at all. It's simply focused here, anchored to our experience of reality. And then there's the question of what happens after death. If OBEs allow consciousness to exist outside the body temporarily, could it mean that it survives even when the body dies? If awareness can leave the physical form and still perceive the world, what does that tell us about the nature of existence? Whatever the answer, out-of-body experiences challenge everything we think we know about reality. They suggest that there may be more to our minds, more to our existence than we can fully comprehend. So as you lie there now, relaxing, drifting, imagine what it would feel like to rise, weightless, above yourself, to look down at your sleeping body, completely at peace. Would you return? Or would you float endlessly into the unknown? The illusion of free will. Are we really in control? Take a moment to think about your last decision. Maybe it was something simple, choosing what to eat for dinner, picking what show to watch, or deciding whether to keep listening to this. Whatever it was, you probably felt like you were in control, like you made the choice freely. But what if I told you that you didn't actually choose at all? That instead, your brain had already made the decision before you were even aware of it. This is the unsettling idea behind the illusion of free will, the theory that our choices aren't truly our own, but rather the result of unconscious processes, predetermined by our biology, environment, and even the fundamental laws of the universe. For centuries, philosophers have debated whether we have free will or whether everything we do is preordained, playing out like a cosmic script that was written long before we were born. The idea that we are in control of our actions is one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in human nature. But modern neuroscience, quantum physics, and philosophy are beginning to suggest that our sense of choice may be nothing more than an illusion. One of the most famous experiments questioning free will was conducted by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s. Libet asked participants to perform a simple task, flexing their wrist, while measuring their brain activity. He found that their brains showed readiness signals before they were consciously aware of deciding to move. In other words, the brain had already initiated the action before they chose to do it. If true, this suggests that our conscious mind is simply rationalizing decisions that have already been made at a subconscious level. Your brain isn't asking for permission, it's just informing you of what it has already decided. Some neuroscientists believe that all decisions are predetermined by a complex chain reaction of neurons firing in predictable patterns, shaped by genetics, past experiences, and environmental stimuli. If this is true, then every action we take is simply the inevitable result of prior causes, meaning true free will doesn't exist. But if we don't have free will, then what does that mean for things like morality, responsibility, or even our sense of self? If our actions are predetermined, are we still accountable for them? If a criminal has no true choice in committing a crime, can they really be blamed? And if we are just machines responding to inputs, what does that say about love, creativity, or the experience of being human? Some scientists argue that even if our choices are influenced by unconscious processes, that doesn't mean free will doesn't exist at all. Instead, they suggest that consciousness acts like an editor, filtering through possibilities and shaping long-term decision-making, even if small, immediate choices happen unconsciously. Then there's the quantum perspective. Some physicists suggest that the randomness of quantum mechanics might restore free will. The fundamental particles that make up our brains don't behave in strictly predictable ways. They operate based on probabilities. Some argue that this unpredictability could introduce a level of spontaneity into our decision-making. But even here, there's a catch. If our choices are random, is that really free will? True freedom would mean making choices independently of both determinism and randomness. But if all decisions are either determined or random, then is there really room for true free will at all? Another perspective comes from simulation theory, the idea that our universe is a highly advanced program, like a cosmic computer simulation. If we are in a simulation, then free will might be nothing more than a scripted illusion designed to make us believe we are in control when in reality, we are just following an unseen code. So, are we truly free? Or are we just characters in a grand cosmic story, playing out our parts without knowing the script? As you listen to this now, consider the choice that brought you here. Was it truly yours? Or was it simply the result of a long chain of causes stretching back to before you were even born? Maybe the real question isn't whether we have free will, but whether we need it at all. The science of lucid dreaming. Can you control your dreams? Every night, when you fall asleep, your mind drifts into a world of shifting landscapes, strange encounters, and fleeting, fragmented stories. Most of the time, you accept these dreams as reality, until you wake up, realizing it was all an illusion. But what if you could take control? What if you could shape your dreams, explore them freely, and experience anything your mind can imagine? This is the phenomenon known as lucid dreaming, the rare but incredible ability to become aware that you are dreaming while still asleep. For some, lucid dreams are brief moments of realization. For others, they become entire worlds of adventure where they can fly, walk through walls, visit impossible landscapes, or even speak with dream characters who seem to have minds of their own. But how does it work? And can anyone learn to do it? Lucid dreaming happens during REM sleep, rapid eye movement, the phase of sleep when your brain is most active and when most vivid dreams occur. During REM sleep, your mind is as active as it is when you're awake, but your body remains paralyzed, preventing you from acting out your dreams. Scientists have discovered that lucid dreaming is linked to increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness and decision-making. This suggests that when you become lucid in a dream, your brain is briefly returning to a more conscious state, allowing you to recognize the dream for what it is. The question is, why does this happen? Some researchers believe that lucid dreaming is simply an accident, a rare misfiring of the brain's wakefulness system that allows conscious thought to creep into an unconscious state. But others believe it may serve an evolutionary purpose. Some theories suggest that lucid dreaming might have helped early humans practice problem solving, rehearse social interactions, or even prepare for threats while asleep. If lucid dreaming is a natural ability, why don't we all experience it regularly? The truth is, some people are naturally prone to lucid dreaming, while others never experience it at all. But with the right techniques, almost anyone can train their brain to wake up inside a dream. One of the most common techniques is called reality testing. Throughout the day, you ask yourself, "Am I dreaming?" and perform small tests, like trying to push a finger through your palm, looking at a clock twice to see if the time changes, or flipping a light switch to see if it works. If you do this enough while awake, the habit carries over into your dreams, where the laws of physics don't behave normally. When your finger suddenly passes through your hand or the clock changes randomly, you realize this isn't real. And in that moment, you become lucid. Another technique is keeping a dream journal. The more you write down your dreams, the better you become at recognizing patterns, strange details, or recurring themes that might tip you off that you're dreaming. Over time, your brain starts to spot these patterns while you're asleep, increasing the chance of lucidity. Then there's the wake back to bed WBTB method. This involves setting an alarm to wake yourself up about 5 hours into sleep, staying awake for 20 to 30 minutes, then going back to sleep while focusing on the intention of having a lucid dream. This method takes advantage of the fact that your brain is more likely to enter REM sleep quickly after a brief period of wakefulness. But here's where things get even stranger. Some people who practice lucid dreaming report experiences that go far beyond simple dream control. Many lucid dreamers describe encountering dream characters who seem to have their own awareness, beings that respond intelligently, challenge the dreamer's control, or even claim to be independent of the dreamer's mind. Some have reported meeting mysterious figures who share knowledge they couldn't have possibly known, only to later verify that the information was real. And then there's the false awakening loop, one of the strangest experiences in lucid dreaming. Some people wake up from a dream, get out of bed, start their day, only to realize moments later that they are still dreaming. They wake up again, only for the cycle to repeat. This can happen multiple times, creating an eerie, layered experience where reality itself feels like a fragile illusion. Could lucid dreaming be more than just a trick of the mind? Some spiritual traditions believe that when you become conscious in a dream, you aren't just controlling a mental simulation. You are entering another dimension, another layer of reality. Tibetan Buddhists practice dream yoga, a form of meditation in which they use lucid dreaming to explore the nature of consciousness. Some shamans believe that lucid dreams allow them to travel to spiritual realms, communicate with guides, or access deeper truths about the universe. And then there's the scientific possibility that lucid dreaming might offer insight into the nature of consciousness itself. If you can be fully aware, fully awake, while inside a dream, then what does that say about our waking reality? How do you know that you are awake right now? How do you know that this moment, this world, is not itself a kind of dream? Lucid dreaming remains one of the most fascinating frontiers of the mind, an ability that once mastered offers endless possibilities. Whether it's simply a neurological trick or something deeper, it is a reminder that reality is not always as rigid as we believe. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, ask yourself, am I dreaming? Because maybe, just maybe, the next time you dream, you'll know the answer. Collective consciousness. Are our minds connected? Have you ever had a moment where you just knew what someone was about to say before they said it? Or maybe you were thinking of an old friend, only for them to suddenly text you out of nowhere. These strange coincidences happen too often to ignore, leaving many to wonder, are our minds somehow connected? The idea of a collective consciousness suggests that human thought is not isolated within individual brains, but instead linked to something greater, a vast, unseen web of shared awareness. If true, this could mean that your thoughts, emotions, and even memories might interact with others' minds in ways we don't fully understand. This concept is far from new. Many ancient spiritual traditions have long believed in a universal mind, a vast field of consciousness that connects all living things. Hinduism, Buddhism, and indigenous belief systems often describe reality as an interconnected whole, where thoughts and energies flow between beings like ripples in an ocean. But could this idea have a scientific basis? One of the most famous theories related to collective consciousness is Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious. Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist, proposed that deep within our subconscious minds, we all share a universal pool of memories, symbols, and archetypes inherited from our ancestors. This would explain why people across different cultures and time periods seem to share similar dreams, myths, and instincts, even when they have never been exposed to the same ideas. For example, across nearly every culture in history, humans have told stories of wise old mentors, shadowy tricksters, and heroic journeys. These recurring themes suggest that something deeper than personal experience is shaping the human mind. Could it be that we are all tapping into a shared mental reservoir, a library of knowledge stored outside of individual brains? Some modern scientists believe there might be a quantum explanation for this. The concept of quantum entanglement suggests that two particles can become linked in such a way that a change to one instantaneously affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. If particles can do this, could consciousness work the same way? Could thoughts and emotions be entangled across vast distances, linking us in ways we can't yet measure? One of the most intriguing experiments related to this idea was conducted by Dr. Roger Nelson at Princeton University. His project, called the Global Consciousness Project, placed random number generators all over the world and monitored them for unusual patterns. The idea was simple. If human minds are truly connected, then moments of global significance, times when millions of people are feeling the same emotions, should somehow influence these random numbers. And strangely enough, they did. Researchers found that during major world events, such as the September 11th attacks, the random number generators became less random, as if human consciousness was influencing the machines. This has led some to speculate that our collective emotions, thoughts, and awareness might create measurable changes in reality itself. Another strange phenomenon that points toward collective consciousness is morphic resonance, a theory proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake. Sheldrake suggested that once an idea, behavior, or skill is learned by a group of individuals, it becomes easier for others to learn it, even if they have no direct contact with those who first discovered it. For example, scientists have observed that when a group of animals learns a new behavior, other groups of the same species, living thousands of miles away, sometimes start doing the same thing without any obvious way to have learned it. Could this be evidence that information is being shared outside of physical communication through an invisible field of consciousness? There are even experiments that suggest humans can sense when they are being watched, a phenomenon known as the psychic staring effect. Have you ever had the feeling that someone was looking at you, only to turn around and find out you were right? Some studies suggest this might not be coincidence. Participants in controlled tests have shown a statistically significant ability to detect when they were being observed, even when they had no sensory cues to indicate it. So what does all of this mean? If consciousness is somehow connected, what are the implications? It could mean that our thoughts and emotions don't just exist inside our heads, but ripple out into the world, influencing people, places, and even reality itself. It might also mean that we are not truly separate from one another. That on a deeper level, we are all part of the same awareness, experiencing reality through different perspectives. But perhaps the most mind-blowing possibility is this. If our minds are connected, what else might we be connected to? Could consciousness extend beyond just humans? Could it stretch across species, planets, or even the universe itself? Some physicists and mystics have speculated that consciousness might be the fundamental force behind reality, something deeper than matter and energy. If that's the case, then the collective consciousness might not just be a human phenomenon. It could be a glimpse into the mind of the universe itself. So, the next time you have a gut feeling, an unexplainable connection with someone, or a moment of knowing something before it happens, ask yourself, is that just your brain? Or is it something greater, a whisper from the vast ocean of consciousness that we are all a part of? The illusion of reality. Is the world we see even real? Look around you. Everything you see, the walls, the floor, the sky, the stars, all of it feels solid, tangible, unquestionably real. But what if I told you that nothing you experience is actually as it seems? What if the world you see is just a convincing illusion, a carefully constructed mental simulation designed by your brain to help you navigate something much stranger than you can imagine? This isn't just philosophy, it's science. Neuroscientists, physicists, and philosophers alike have long questioned the true nature of reality, and what they found is deeply unsettling. Let's start with the most fundamental question. how do you know anything is real? Your entire experience of the world comes from your senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. But here's the problem. Your senses don't actually show you reality. They just give you a filtered interpretation of it. Everything you see isn't the world itself. It's a reconstruction inside your mind. Your eyes don't see the world in real time. Instead, they pick up light waves and send raw electrical signals to your brain. Your brain then translates those signals into the experience of sight. But your brain has no direct access to reality itself. It only experiences the signals it receives, meaning that what you see is only a representation of the world, not the world itself. And sight isn't the only sense that works this way. The same goes for sound. Your ears pick up vibrations, convert them into electrical impulses, and your brain turns them into voices, music, or background noise. Touch, taste, and smell. They all follow the same pattern. So if all your senses are just interpretations of reality, how do you know that what you experience is what's actually there? One of the strangest scientific discoveries of the last century is that your brain actively creates reality rather than just perceiving it. Studies have shown that what you see, hear, and feel is highly edited by your mind. Your brain fills in gaps, removes unnecessary details, and even alters what you perceive to make the world seem more stable and predictable. For example, did you know that your eyes have a blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina? Right now, as you look around, there's a literal hole in your vision, but you don't notice it. Why? Because your brain fills in the missing details so seamlessly that you never realize anything is missing. And then there's time. You experience time as a continuous flowing stream. But in reality, your brain processes information in small chunks, stitching together moments like frames in a movie. Sometimes, when something unexpected happens, your brain even rewrites the past few seconds to make sense of it, an effect known as post-diction. This raises an unsettling possibility. If your brain is capable of altering what you perceive, how much of reality is truly accurate? Some scientists believe that reality itself may not be solid at all, but instead a kind of holographic projection. The holographic principle in physics suggests that the entire universe might be a three-dimensional projection of information stored on a distant, two-dimensional surface. If this is true, then everything you see and touch is not truly physical. It's a highly convincing projection, like the image on a holographic screen. And then there's simulation theory, the idea that reality itself might be a kind of advanced computer simulation. If we assume that technology will continue to advance, it's not hard to imagine that a civilization far more advanced than ours could create simulated universes indistinguishable from reality. Some physicists, including those at NASA, have even suggested that if the universe is a simulation, we might be able to detect glitches, small inconsistencies in physics that hint at a programmed structure. There are already strange phenomena in physics that seem to support this idea. The famous double-slit experiment in quantum mechanics shows that particles can behave like both waves and solid objects, depending on whether they are being observed. It's as if reality itself doesn't fully exist until it is measured, just like how a video game world only renders what's in front of the player. But if reality is an illusion, then what does that mean for you? If your brain is just interpreting signals, then who, or what, is the thing that's actually experiencing it all? This brings us to one of the biggest mysteries of all, the nature of consciousness. If everything you perceive is just information processed by your brain, then your awareness, your sense of self, isn't something that exists in the physical world. It exists in the mind. But if consciousness is separate from the material world, then it might not be bound by it. Could it be that what you are, your awareness, is not a part of the illusion, but something beyond it? The philosopher Immanuel Kant once argued that there is a difference between the world as it truly is and the world as we experience it. He called these two realities noumenon, the true nature of things, and phenomenon, the way we perceive them. If Kant was right, then we may never truly know what the universe is really like. We only know the version our minds allow us to see. But what if, just for a moment, you could step beyond the illusion? What if you could see reality as it truly is? Would it look anything like the world you know now? Or would it be something else entirely? Something so far beyond human understanding that we can only grasp it in dreams, visions, and fleeting moments of déjà vu. As you relax now, drifting deeper into thought, consider this. What if everything you've ever known is just a dream, and one day you'll wake up? Near-death experiences. Do we really die? Death, the one experience every living thing will eventually face. The great unknown, the final frontier. But what if it isn't the end? What if, in those final moments, something else happens? Something beyond what science can explain? For centuries, people who have come close to death have reported strange and vivid experiences. They speak of floating above their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, meeting deceased loved ones, or feeling a profound sense of peace and unity with the universe. These are known as near-death experiences, NDEs, and they may hold the key to understanding what, if anything, happens when we die. But what exactly are near-death experiences? Are they hallucinations, a final burst of brain activity, or could they be glimpses into something more, a hidden reality beyond life as we know it? One of the most common elements of an NDE is the out-of-body experience. Many people who have been clinically dead, without a heartbeat, without brain activity, report floating above themselves, watching doctors work to revive them. Some have described conversations, medical instruments, or even details in the room that they couldn't have physically seen from their position. Take the case of Maria, a woman who suffered a heart attack in Seattle. While unconscious, she reported floating outside the hospital building and noticing a blue tennis shoe on a third-floor ledge. Later, a nurse went to check and found the shoe exactly as she described it. Then there's the famous case of Pam Reynolds, who underwent an experimental brain surgery in 1991. Doctors completely shut down her brain activity, no measurable consciousness, no chance of dreaming. And yet, when she woke up, she recalled vivid details of the operation, from the instruments used to conversations between surgeons, even though she was clinically dead at the time. If the brain is completely inactive, where are these memories coming from? Some scientists argue that NDEs are just hallucinations caused by the brain shutting down. When oxygen levels drop, the brain floods with chemicals like DMT, which can trigger vivid, dreamlike visions. Others suggest that NDEs are simply the brain's way of making sense of the dying process, an evolutionary defense mechanism designed to ease the fear of death. But then, there are cases that go beyond mere hallucinations. Some people report seeing things they couldn't possibly have known, objects in the room, conversations happening miles away, even events that hadn't happened yet. Many NDE survivors describe a sense of traveling through a tunnel toward a bright light. Some encounter deceased loved ones, angels, or even beings of pure energy. Others experience a panoramic life review where they relive every moment of their existence through their own eyes and through the eyes of those they impacted. They don't just remember their actions, they feel the emotions they caused in others. One of the most intriguing aspects of NDEs is that they happen across all cultures, to people of different religions, backgrounds, and beliefs. Even children, too young to have been influenced by religious ideas, report seeing similar things. Tunnels, lights, loved ones waiting for them. Could it be that they are all experiencing the same underlying reality? And then there's the question of where consciousness goes after death. If NDEs are real, do they suggest that the mind exists outside the body? that awareness continues beyond the brain. Some researchers have explored the idea that consciousness might not be produced by the brain at all, but instead, the brain is more like a receiver, tuning into a field of consciousness that exists beyond physical life. If this is true, then death might not be an end, but a transition. Could NDEs be evidence that we don't truly die? That consciousness moves on into something else, another dimension, another reality, another state of being? Some traditions believe that what people experience in an NDE is just the first step. Tibetan Buddhism speaks of the bardo, an intermediate state between life and rebirth. Many religions describe an afterlife, a realm beyond the physical world where the soul continues. Even some modern scientists speculate that if the multiverse is real, then death might simply be the movement of consciousness from one reality to another. Of course, skeptics argue that NDEs are just a byproduct of a dying brain, a final illusion before the lights go out forever. But if that's the case, why do so many people come back from them completely changed? Many who have had NDEs report a total shift in perspective, a loss of fear of death, a greater sense of purpose, and an overwhelming feeling of love and unity with everything. Some even report coming back with new abilities, heightened intuition, unexplained knowledge, or sudden artistic talents. So what is the truth? Is death just a biological shutdown, or is it the doorway to something greater? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. The mystery of death is far deeper and far stranger than we ever imagined. And one day when our time comes, we will finally know the answer. Reincarnation. Have we lived before? Have you ever met someone and felt an instant connection, as if you had known them forever? Or visited a place for the first time, yet somehow it felt strangely familiar? Could it be just coincidence? Or is it possible that these moments are memories from a life you've lived before? This is the mystery of reincarnation. The idea that when we die, we don't simply vanish. Instead, our consciousness is reborn into a new body, a new life, with no memory of the one before it. But sometimes the past leaks through, in fragments, in dreams, in strange feelings we can't explain. But is reincarnation real? And if so, what does that mean for who we truly are? For thousands of years, many cultures have believed in some form of reincarnation. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and many indigenous traditions teach that the soul, or consciousness, is not tied to just one life. It moves from body to body, lifetime after lifetime, learning, growing, evolving. Even some ancient Greek philosophers, including Plato and Pythagoras, believed that the soul was immortal and took on different forms across multiple lives. But this isn't just a spiritual idea. Some scientists have begun to take reincarnation seriously, investigating cases of people who seem to remember past lives in astonishing detail. One of the most famous researchers in this field was Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist who spent decades studying children who claimed to remember past lives. He documented over 2,500 cases of children, often as young as 3 or 4 years old, who spoke about past experiences with incredible accuracy. One of these cases involved a boy named James Leininger, who, at the age of 2, started having nightmares about being trapped in a burning plane. He began describing detailed memories of being a fighter pilot in World War II, including the name of his aircraft carrier, the location where his plane was shot down, and even the names of his fellow pilots. His parents, initially skeptical, researched the details, only to discover that everything their son had said matched the real-life story of a World War II pilot named James Houston, who had died in combat. Then there's the case of Shanti Devi, a girl born in India in the 1930s. As a child, she insisted she had lived before as a woman named Ludgi Devi, describing details about her previous husband, children, and even the home she once lived in. When researchers brought her to the village she claimed to have lived in, she recognized family members from her past life, people she had never met in this lifetime. Even more bizarre, the husband she described confirmed her story, recognizing her as his deceased wife. How is this possible? If reincarnation is real, why don't we all remember our past lives? Some believe that when we are reborn, our memories are erased, like a slate wiped clean, so we can experience life without the weight of past identities. But occasionally, memories slip through, especially in young children, whose minds haven't yet fully separated from the past. But what if reincarnation isn't just about coming back as another person? Some theories suggest that we don't just reincarnate as humans, but as any living being. Could your soul have once belonged to a different species? An animal? A plant? Even something beyond Earth? Some spiritual traditions believe that souls evolve, moving through different levels of consciousness, first as simple life forms, then as humans, and eventually into higher, more enlightened beings. Then there's the idea of parallel reincarnation. What if, instead of living one life at a time, we are actually living multiple lives at once, different versions of ourselves, experiencing different realities, in different places and times? Could your dreams, your instincts, your sudden flashes of intuition be glimpses of your other selves? And here's where things get even stranger. Some people who undergo past life regression hypnosis claim to remember lives not just on Earth, but on other planets, in other dimensions, in civilizations far beyond our own. Could consciousness exist outside of time? Could our souls be moving across the universe, experiencing existence in ways we can't yet comprehend? The more we investigate reincarnation, the more questions arise. If we have lived before, then what is the purpose of each life? Are we here to learn, to grow, to right past mistakes? Some believe reincarnation is part of a greater cycle, where each lifetime teaches us lessons that shape our soul, leading us toward a final state of enlightenment. Others believe it is endless, a cosmic loop that never truly ends. But if reincarnation is real, then what does that mean for identity? If you have lived hundreds of lives before, then who are you really? Are you the person listening to this right now? Or are you a collection of everyone you've ever been? Maybe you've felt it before, that strange feeling that you were meant to do something, go somewhere, meet someone. Maybe that feeling isn't random at all. Maybe it's the past reaching out, guiding you, leading you towards something you've been searching for, across lifetimes. And maybe, when this life ends, you won't be gone. You'll just be waking up in a new body, in a new time, with no memory of the one before it. Until, one day, a familiar face or a distant place reminds you of who you really are. The nature of time. Is the future already decided? Time, it moves forward, never backward, always pulling us further into the unknown. But what if everything we think we know about time is wrong? What if the past, present, and future already exist, and our movement through them is nothing more than an illusion? For centuries, philosophers and scientists have debated the true nature of time. We experience it as a flow, but is time actually something fixed and unchanging? If so, then does that mean the future has already been written? That every decision we make, every event that will ever happen, has already occurred in a higher dimension of reality, waiting for us to reach it? Or do we have the ability to change our path, shifting from one timeline to another, constantly reshaping the course of our existence? To answer this question, we have to take a journey into the very fabric of reality, and what we'll find is far stranger than anything we could have imagined. The illusion of time. Does time actually flow? At first glance, time seems simple. We wake up, move through the day, and go to sleep. We can remember yesterday, but we can't access tomorrow. It hasn't happened yet. This makes it seem like the past is gone, the present is all that exists, and the future is waiting to be written. But modern physics tells a different story. Einstein's theory of relativity changed everything we thought we knew about time. It showed that time is not a fixed universal experience. It stretches, slows, and warps, depending on speed and gravity. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth while the other travels on a spaceship near the speed of light. When the traveler returns, they will have aged much less than the twin who stayed behind. This isn't science fiction. It's a real effect, known as time dilation, and it has been proven in experiments with atomic clocks on satellites. But this raises a profound question. If time can stretch and slow, does it actually flow at all? According to the block universe theory, it doesn't. What if the universe is conscious? We often think of the universe as a vast, cold, and lifeless expanse, a collection of stars, planets, and galaxies governed by blind physical laws. But what if the universe itself is conscious? What if, beyond the atoms and empty space, there is an awareness, a mind woven into the very fabric of existence? It sounds like science fiction, but this idea is one of the most fascinating and controversial questions in both philosophy and modern physics. Could it be that consciousness isn't just something that exists in human brains, but a fundamental part of reality itself? If so, what does that mean for our place in the cosmos? Let's explore the mind-bending possibility that the universe isn't just a thing, it's a being. What is consciousness, and why is it so mysterious? Before we can ask if the universe is conscious, we need to understand what consciousness actually is. And the truth is, we don't. Scientists and philosophers have been struggling for centuries to explain why we experience the world the way we do. Right now, you are aware of your own thoughts. You have an inner world of emotions, memories, and perceptions. But how does this arise from the physical matter of your brain? Your brain is made of neurons, biological circuits firing electrical impulses. But no matter how closely we study these neurons, we can't find a single point where matter turns into mind. We can see the processes happening, but we don't know why they create the feeling of being you. This is called the hard problem of consciousness. Science can explain how the brain works, but it cannot explain why we have self-awareness. Now, let's take that problem and apply it to the universe. If consciousness can emerge from a collection of simple neurons, could it also emerge from the vast interconnected structure of the cosmos? Panpsychism, the theory that everything is conscious. One of the most intriguing ideas in philosophy and physics is called panpsychism, the belief that consciousness is not just something that appears in humans, but a fundamental property of the universe. Imagine for a moment that everything, every atom, every planet, every galaxy, has some tiny level of awareness. Not in the way that humans think, but in a basic, fundamental form. Just as individual neurons in your brain don't think the way you do, but collectively create your mind, could the particles and forces of the universe together form something we might call a cosmic mind? This idea isn't new. Ancient cultures, from the Stoic philosophers of Greece to Hindu and Buddhist traditions, have long believed that the universe is alive, filled with intelligence beyond human understanding. But now, modern physics is beginning to take the idea seriously. The universe behaves like a brain. Is that a coincidence? One of the strangest discoveries in recent years is that the structure of the universe looks eerily similar to the structure of a brain. Scientists have found that the large-scale distribution of galaxies, the cosmic web, shares mathematical and structural similarities with the neural networks in a brain. Both have dense clusters of connections linked by long, filament-like structures. In fact, a study comparing the universe's structure to that of the brain found that they are nearly identical in terms of complexity. The brain has about 86 billion neurons, interconnected by vast networks of synapses. The observable universe contains around 100 billion galaxies, linked by cosmic filaments of dark matter and energy. Both systems follow similar rules of growth and connectivity, suggesting that the universe may be functioning like a massive brain. Is this just a coincidence? Or is it evidence that the universe is processing information in a way that resembles thought? Is the universe thinking? The simulation hypothesis and quantum weirdness. If the universe behaves like a brain, does that mean it thinks? Does it have intentions, emotions, or some kind of cosmic awareness? One of the most radical theories is that the universe is actually a form of computation, a vast information processing system. This aligns with the simulation hypothesis, which suggests that the universe itself might be a kind of advanced program running on a structure we cannot yet perceive. This idea isn't just theoretical. It's supported by strange findings in quantum physics. In the famous double-slit experiment, scientists found that particles behave differently when they are observed. When no one is watching, they act like waves, existing in multiple places at once. But the moment they are measured, they choose a single state. It's almost as if consciousness itself plays a role in shaping reality. Could this be evidence that the universe reacts to awareness, the way a brain responds to thought? Some physicists, including John Wheeler, have suggested that the universe participates in its own creation. He proposed that reality doesn't exist in a definite state until it is observed, meaning that consciousness and the universe are deeply linked. If the universe is conscious, what does that mean for us? If the universe has some form of awareness, what does that mean for you and me? Are we individual beings or tiny fragments of a greater cosmic mind? This idea has deep spiritual and philosophical implications. If we are part of a conscious universe, then our thoughts, our experiences, and our lives are not separate from it. Some have suggested that what we call intuition, or higher consciousness, might actually be glimpses of this greater awareness. When people describe feeling connected to the universe in moments of deep meditation, near-death experiences, or psychedelic states, could they be tapping into the universal mind? And if the universe is conscious, does that mean it has a purpose? Or is it simply aware of itself, experiencing existence through countless forms, stars, planets, and living beings? The final question: what are we really? We often think of ourselves as separate from the universe, tiny specks of life in an indifferent cosmos. But if the universe is conscious, then we are not separate at all. Just as neurons in your brain create your thoughts, perhaps we, as conscious beings, are the thoughts of the universe itself. Could it be that we are the universe, waking up to itself? And if that's true, then what happens when we die? Does our consciousness return to the greater whole? Do we dissolve back into the fabric of the cosmos, like waves returning to the ocean? Perhaps consciousness isn't inside us. Perhaps we are inside it. And maybe, just maybe, the universe has been thinking about you all along.